Dating today is genuinely terrifying. Not because people don't meet anymore, but because modern dating feels less like a connection and more like evaluation. Everybody is being assessed constantly on apps, on Instagram, on dating profiles, on stories, on photographs carefully edited before posting, on whether you look effortless, on whether you seem desirable enough to publicly claim. And I think for people who already struggle with their bodies, modern dating can feel emotionally brutal. Because imagine growing up insecure and then entering a world where attraction has become content, where everybody suddenly has types, preferences, standards, gym bodies, soft launches, hard launches, relationship aesthetics. People don't even reject quietly anymore. Now, rejection has algorithms. And honestly, I sometimes wonder whether dating apps were designed specifically to emotionally humble people. Because nothing destroys your confidence faster than spending 45 minutes choosing one photograph only for three men with perhaps the same name to collectively decide you're not worth responding to. And the weirdest part is, everyone pretends modern dating is casual. Oh, it's just texting, it's just a date, it's not that deep. But for insecure people, it is deep. Because every ignored message feels personal. Every delayed reply feels loaded. Every unread text becomes a reflection of your self worth. Especially if you grew up believing your body was the first thing people judged about you. And I think that's why dating becomes so emotionally exhausting for people with body insecurity. Because you're not entering romance peacefully. You're entering carrying years of comparison, humiliation, self awareness, and fear. Fear that somebody might initially like you until they see you properly. Fear that attraction disappears once filters disappear. Fear that you'll always be almost attractive, almost lovable, almost enough. And honestly, I think some of us spend so much time trying to become desirable that we forget to ask a much more important question. Do we even feel safe being seen by someone at all? Because today's episode isn't just about dating. It's about what happens when insecurity enters the room before you do. Hi, friends. Welcome back to the Fat Girl Diary. Firstly, I want to thank all those who have been listening to the Fat Girl Diary, and especially the people who messaged me after the last episode. A big hug to all of you out there. Now, let me kickstart this episode by explaining something. Thin girls get pre-date butterflies. Fat girls, we experience pre-date psychological collapse. There's a difference. I remember one particular date where I started getting ready 4 hours early. I'm not even kidding, 4 hours. As if I was preparing for some kind of surgery. The man said, let's grab coffee. And I reacted like the Prime Minister had invited me to a diplomatic summit. The outfit selection alone deserved military funding. I tried on one top and then immediately went, absolutely not, this fabric knows too much. Second outfit, no, why are my arms behaving like this? Third outfit, this mirror is a liar, somebody arrest it. And slowly my room became a crime scene. Clothes on the bed, clothes on the chair, one bra hanging from the fan somehow. And throughout all of this, my brain kept replaying one terrifying thought. He's only seen my face properly. That was my biggest fear. Because selfies are fraudulent. I'm sorry, friends. They are. Especially insecure girl selfies. The angle is above your head, the lighting is dim, one shoulder forward, chin lifted like you're receiving wisdom from the gods. Meanwhile, in real life, gravity enters the conversation. And I remember standing in front of my mirror thinking, what if he sees me and immediately has the same expression people have after ordering something online that looked better in the pictures? That level of fear is exhausting. And the saddest part, I genuinely believed this was normal. Anyway, after emotionally collapsing in front of my wardrobe, I finally mustered the courage and wore, guess what? A black outfit. Because obviously, black is not a color for fat girls, it's a survival strategy. I reached the cafe and immediately started scanning the environment like a security threat analyst. Normal people notice ambience. I notice structural stability. Nobody talks enough about the anxiety fat people develop around furniture. Furniture becomes personal, especially restaurant chairs. Because some chairs look at you and basically say, "Oh, good luck, babe." And then I saw it. Those tiny aesthetic metal chairs. You know the kind cafes buy because apparently discomfort is part of the decor now. And instantly my brain went, interesting. The date is speaking, smiling, being charming. Meanwhile, I'm calculating weight distribution. And if you know, you know. There's always that horrifying moment before sitting down where your entire ancestry flashes before your eyes. And when the chair survives, immediate emotional attachment. Like, wow, thank you for your service. But insecurity doesn't stop there because then food arrives. And suddenly eating becomes performance art. Do I order fries? Too risky. What about salad? Now I look performative. What about a burger? Oh my god, society will collapse. I remember ordering the tiniest thing on the menu pretending I wasn't hungry. But baby, I was starving. Growing up fat teaches you people monitor what you eat like it's public activity. And then the waiter betrayed me. This man looked directly at me and said, "That's all, ma'am." And immediately I felt attacked. Because why? Like, why are you shocked, sir? Now suddenly the whole table feels judgmental. The waiter, the menu, the pasta in the corner, everybody has opinions. So obviously I panicked and went, "Oh, no, no, no. I had a late lunch actually." Lies. Complete lies. I hadn't eaten properly the entire day because remember, I spent 4 hours just deciding what to wear. And the worst part, the guy I was with was eating peacefully, relaxed, existing normally. Meanwhile, I'm there performing control eating. Like Discovery Channel is filming a documentary called The Insecure Fat Girl in Her Natural Habitat. Tiny bites, slow chewing, strategic water sipping. At one point, I became so aware of myself that I forgot how to hold cutlery naturally. And honestly, the date itself wasn't even bad. He was kind, funny, easy to talk to. But insecurity ruins experiences before people even get the chance to. Because by the end of the evening, I didn't leave thinking, did I like him? In fact, I left wondering, did I look fat while sitting down? That's the real damage insecurity does. It steals your ability to fully experience moments while they're happening, especially the good ones. Anyway, before leaving the cafe, this guy asked me if we could take a photograph together. Now, can we discuss couple photographs for a second? Because insecure people don't take pictures. We negotiate hostage situations. He pulled out his phone to click a selfie and casually said, "Come closer." And internally I was like, absolutely not. There are angles involved. You know what's painful? Watching someone casually exist in photographs while you're fighting for survival beside them. He's smiling naturally, living freely, and I am there doing geometry with my jawline. Tilt face, extended neck, inhale slightly, rotate shoulder, and then pray. At one point, I genuinely believed I could outsmart obesity through posture. Delusion. And the worst part, after the photo, he looked happy. Meanwhile, I zoomed into the picture like a forensic investigator, ruining my own evening. And I think people don't realize how exhausting insecurity is because it sounds ridiculous out loud. But when you spend years being hyper aware of your body, you stop experiencing moments naturally. Everything becomes observation. I somehow survived that moment. And while I wanted to disappear into the ground dramatically, he smiled and politely asked, "Do you want to go for a drive by any chance?" And honestly, every insecure girl knows this moment because now the date is extending, which sounds romantic in theory, but emotionally, terrifying. Because once a date lasts longer than expected, you start thinking, wait a minute. Does this mean he's actually enjoying my company? And somehow that possibility becomes more frightening than rejection itself. So, what did I do? I said yes. Trying to sound casual, trying not to sound like my nervous system had completely detached from reality. We got into the car, and for the first few minutes, I remember being hyper aware of everything. How I was sitting, whether my stomach looked bigger seated, whether the seat belt was sitting weirdly across my body, whether I looked awkward from the side profile. It's exhausting how much space insecurity occupies in your brain. There was this one moment I'll never forget. Music low, rain outside, main character energy. And suddenly, while laughing, his hand rested softly on my stomach. And I swear to God, my soul left my body temporarily. Because all I could think was, damn, he can feel the stomach. Not romance, not intimacy, not affection, the stomach. And immediately I shifted away slightly without even thinking. That's how deeply insecurity lives inside you. Your body reacts before your brain does. And guess what? He noticed. He actually paused and went, "Why do you move away every time I touch you?" And obviously I lied. I said, No, I don't. Which is a very powerful sentence women say while actively doing the thing. But the truth was, I genuinely couldn't imagine someone touching me without evaluating me simultaneously. Because when people spend years discussing your body publicly, you start believing your body exists to be judged first and loved second. Anyway, he dropped me home a little later that night. And I remember sitting inside the car for a few awkward seconds before leaving because I genuinely didn't know how to behave anymore. Part of me was relieved that the date was over. Part of me was confused because nothing terrible had happened. He looked at me the entire evening like he actually wanted to be there. And somehow that felt harder to process than rejection would have. Because when you spend years preparing yourself to be unwanted, healthy attention feels very suspicious. I remember getting out of the car and doing the most insecure girl thing imaginable. The second I reached home, I replayed the entire date like CCTV footage, everything. The way I sat, the way I laughed, whether my stomach looked visible in the car, whether I ate weirdly, whether I sounded annoying, whether he noticed how nervous I was. And then obviously I opened his Instagram because apparently emotional suffering wasn't complete yet. And while stalking his following list like an FBI agent with abandonment issues, I noticed something immediately. Every girl he followed looked effortlessly pretty. Tiny waist, sharp jawlines, beautiful hair. The kind of girls who look naturally good in candid photographs. And instantly, all the confidence I had temporarily built during the drive disappeared. Just gone. Because insecurity does that. It can take one small detail and completely rewrite your reality. And suddenly, my brain was like, oh, these are the girls he actually likes. You were just tonight's entertainment. And the horrible part is, he had done absolutely nothing wrong. And that's what people don't understand about deep insecurity. Sometimes the battle isn't between you and other people. It's between you and that voice in your head that learned humiliation too early. So if you've ever overthought a hug or cried after trying on clothes or analyzed your own body more harshly than anyone else ever has, I totally understand. And maybe healing doesn't begin when you suddenly love yourself completely. Maybe it begins the first time you stop treating yourself like a problem that needs solving. And for anyone wondering, yes, that guy, he eventually ghosted me. I mean, of course he did. Modern dating wouldn't feel authentic without at least one emotionally confusing disappearance. One day we were talking normally, the next day this man vanished like he had entered witness protection. And weirdly enough, that wasn't even the part that hurt the most. What hurt most was how quickly my brain turned his silence into proof that every insecurity I had about myself was correct. Because when you already struggle with self worth, ghosting doesn't just feel like rejection, it feels like confirmation. And I think that's why today's episode mattered. Because sometimes the real battle isn't whether somebody chooses you, it's whether you abandon yourself the second somebody else does. Next Sunday, I want to talk about something that has quietly damaged an entire generation's self esteem: filters. Because I genuinely think social media has changed the way people experience their own faces. Somewhere along the way, mirrors stop being enough. Now we meet ourselves through front cameras, through beauty filters, through edited versions of ourselves that slowly becomes more familiar than reality. And the frightening part? After a while, your face starts feeling like the wrong version. I want to ask a very uncomfortable question. What happens when an entire generation starts feeling uglier in real life than they do online? Because I think a lot of us are no longer trying to look good, we're trying to look digitally acceptable. I'll see you next Sunday with this entry from the Fat Girl Diary, and I think this one is going to hurt a little.